ladies of Tribe. This is Alyssa McLaren, and I could use more sleep. Not sure about all of you, but I drink about 3 cups of coffee a day on average, maybe more. 2 of which are before 7 a.m. So I know I'm being really healthy with my caffeine intake. We have 3 children, the youngest of which is 2. So you'd think that by now I'd be getting more sleep, but she wakes up still at 4:30 every morning. So my husband and I switch off every morning to who will take care of her. And then subsequently that night, one of us will go to bed at like 8 o'clock at night because we're so tired. So it's very exciting here in the McLaren household. We are going to bed before 9 o'clock usually every night because we are so sleep deprived. So I'm really looking forward to listening to our speaker today, Karen Gannaway, who is a mother of 3 boys. She is a fellow tribe mama herself. She is now living with her family outside of Cleveland, Ohio. But, prior to having children, Karen lived in New York City working as a publicist. And after moving to Southern California and having her first son, she spent the first 4 months of Grayson's life just exhausted, frustrated, and anxious. And then after learning some sleep techniques through books and research and getting on a healthy sleep schedule, her family saw how dramatically life improved when everyone is rested. And I truly understand that. I just think sleep affects every single aspect of our lives. But her next child presented a new set of challenges that none of the books could help her with. So she met this woman, Melissa Brown, and Melissa Brown works with Sleep Shop and has different techniques. And so she helped teach Karen some of these techniques, which Karen has now implemented for various stages of child development. And these techniques keep her family healthy, and are really the habits which her family still use today. And it's the cornerstone of which keeps, life's daily routine good. So I'm looking forward to hearing those habits and seeing how I can implement them into our life, because again, my Jira coffee maker is like my 4th child. It makes 100 cups of coffee, oh my gosh, probably every month, because I have to clean it, every 100 cups of coffee. Anyway, I would rather have more sleep though. So, sleep definitely has affected not only our mental, physical health, but how we live life. So thank you, Karen, for taking the time to come back to us in Southern California today and help all of the mommies like me learn how to better take care of ourselves and our family.
Everyone, my name's Karen Ganaway with Sleep Shop Consulting, and I'm so excited to be speaking to you today about sleep for your kiddos. We lived in Newport Beach for 10 years, and St. Andrews and Tribe were really special to me when we were there. So it's really nice to be able to come back and talk to all of you. And I'm so glad this has been able to continue even during these crazy times. So a little bit of background. I joined Sleep Shop about 1.5 years ago. I started out as Melissa's client with our 2nd child. Babies were really hard for us. None of our children ever wanted to sleep, and we were exhausted. And so I was introduced to Melissa when our 2nd was about 4 months old, and she just instantly gave us structure and hope, and most importantly, sleep. So that's really what we aim to do at Sleep Shop. We believe that a good sleep plan benefits all aspects of the family: strong marriages, healthy boundaries, and reliable routines for your kids. So today what I'm going to do is go over some of the foundations and the basics, and that they are applicable for all ages, and definitely babies up through toddlers. Then I'm going to go into a little bit more specific by age, and then cover a few commonly asked questions, topics, and that include some of the questions that you guys sent over, or you ladies, sent over. So to start, the foundations for good sleep, the first thing is going to be a dark room, as dark as possible, blackout shades. Really, you should not be able to read a book, even really see your hand if it's extended all the way out in front of you. The dark room is going to be really key in those light hours of sleep that start around 4 a.m. when melatonin production starts to decrease and sleep pressure starts to lift. So when there's a dark room, that will help children and adults as well stay in their sleep mode. And that's something that you can recreate anywhere you go, bringing a blanket or something just to help make sure that you can recreate that wherever you may be. The next thing is a sound machine, white noise, something that is loud and constant that goes all night long. And really, you want to be able to hear it from outside of a closed door. This is for younger babies. It recreates the sound of the womb. And then for older children, it just helps settle into deeper sleep cycles. So do not be afraid to crank that up. We get a lot of questions about maybe caretakers or grandparents who think it might be too loud and maybe doing damage, and they're all tested for safety. And we use a hatch for our youngest, and we have it up to 90%. I know people have put it up to 100%, and other sound machines really can't get above a dangerous level. The next thing is temperature and clothing. The general rule of thumb is dress your child or baby as you would dress yourself for bed. You want to make sure that they're not getting too warm because babies' temperatures go up between sleep cycles. And so that will make it harder for them to settle if they get overheated. Same thing for older kids. Cotton jammies like a Hannah Anderson are great for your kids so that they're not getting too warm either. The next foundation is really for babies, but it's something that sets you up on the road for success for kids of any age, is putting them down awake. So this teaches your child to sleep independently, which is a skill that they will have for life, and they will always be able to go back to it. And so that's going to, when they're a baby, it's going to be in that stage before their eyes are initially starting to close. If they're already starting to flutter their eyes, they're actually in their first sleep cycle. So it can be a little bit of trial and error working with your baby and seeing what drowsy but awake looks like for your child. And you'll know if you've timed it right because they'll be very calm and relaxed when you put them in the crib. They might look at you, but they're not getting upset. If they start to cry right when you put them down, it probably means that they were overtired when you put them put them in the crib. So you're just going to want to make sure you try a little earlier the next time. The next thing is eating full meals. And I'll get into this a little bit more by age, but really, we're not going to sleep train a baby that's hungry. So making sure that they're getting all the calories they can get during the day, and full feeding. So 15 to 20 minutes per side if you're nursing, a full bottle. And if they're draining a bottle really quickly, that means they need more. Making sure the fastest flow possible on the bottle so they're not working too hard. Babies are just really lazy eaters. And if they have to work too hard, they're not going to do it. And then they're not going to get the calories. And then they're going to still need food at night. And a full feeding changes each week. So you definitely want to follow your pediatrician and what they're guiding you towards for your baby. Because again, we just need to make sure that they are not missing out on any important calories so they can keep growing. Then the next final foundation is wake windows. And this is something that we are really conservative about at Sleep Shop. We like to have babies in their bed before they're overtired. It's really going to set them up for success and give them all the tools to get themselves settled and sleeping independently. So when your baby's really little, that might even be 45 minutes. And then as they get older, obviously it'll stretch. And every baby's really different. And that's where someone like a sleep consultant comes in, because if you Google something, you're going to get more of a generic template. And it's very different per baby. We could be working with families that have babies the exact same age, and there's a 15-minute range in the wake windows. And at different times of day, you're going to have a different wake window. For example, in the morning is always going to be your shortest because that's an extension of nighttime sleep. And so you're going to barely have the kid up for as long as you might think you might. And so you might have them down within an hour and they're going to take a great morning nap. And then during the day, you can extend that. And so that is really the basics. And you can always go back to those if you're having an issue with sleep where a kid's been sleeping great and suddenly they're, rising early or having trouble going to bed at night, you can go back and see like if there's been a recent time change or, starting to get lighter earlier, then, you need to go back and maybe look at some of those basics. So by age, we'll start with 0 to 6 months. During these stages, the first things you're really going to be working on, because a set schedule will be a little hard, is the day-night confusion for the first few weeks. Babies don't make melatonin until 3 months, and so helping them to regulate day and night. So during the day, lots of light, lots of noise, exposing them, and then when it's nighttime, the opposite. So they're in their room, you're not turning on lights when you're feeding them, being very quiet and calm. You want to be working on full feedings at this age and really getting in a good nursing routine. You want to start a bedtime routine, and at this age it will be a pretty quick one, but you definitely want it to be goal driven and helping them calm down and get ready for sleep. So we always like a bath because that's great to regulate body temperature before they go to sleep at night. A book, snuggles, and for a nighttime feeding, I really like to keep that at the beginning of a bedtime routine so that they're not making any sleep association with eating and sleeping. If you want to give them a bottle right before bed, that's fine. I would just have them be burped, and so that they're a little bit awake when you're putting them into the crib and falling asleep on their own. At this age, they're probably taking between 4 to 5 naps a day, and there's going to be really short wake windows. Those will gradually increase as they get older. By the time they're 6 months, it's probably closer to 2.5 hours. Breaking the swaddle during this time. If your baby is an early roller, but they're not quite ready to be out of the swaddle, then there's a Merlin sleep sack for that transition, or you can try one arm out or two arms out, and you're always going to want to break the swaddle at nighttime first, because they're going to get they have greater sleep pressure, and they're going to sleep better at night. But definitely if your baby is starting to roll, it's time to get them out of the swaddle, or and also getting them out of the snoo. So obviously that's changed in the last few years, where families are using the snoo, which is great. We love the snoo. We work with a lot of families who use it. And we probably could teach a whole separate class on how to get your baby out of it. But, switch to the wean mode for a little while, and then start by putting them into their crib at night, starting the night in their crib. And then if they wake in the night and have a hard time settle, you can always move them back to the snoo. And starting and then building on getting them for naps in there. There are regressions during this time, which we like to think of kind of more as sleep interruptions, because if your baby does know how to independently sleep, they don't lose that skill. They might just need a little more help during a time of regression. They're going to be very developmental at this time, and just handling them with consistency. And so a lot of times during regression, people will change, they'll break the swaddle, or they'll drop a nap, or they will dramatically change a wake window. And you really want to change as few variables as possible and try to remain consistent so that you know what it could be that is causing them to have issues with sleeping. And during a regression, or if they're having an issue sleeping and they're not and they're out of the swaddle and they're in their crib at night, going through the checklist of, are they hungry? Is their diaper dirty? Or are they in pain? If the answer is no to all of those questions, then sit back and let the baby try to figure it out a little bit. If you know that you have had a good daytime sleep, they've had good feedings that day, and they are not overtired, then they just need a little bit of time to learn that skill. And some tears is just their form of protest. And so, allowing them to develop that skill will be better in the long run. The next age bracket would be 6 to 12 months. I love this period of time. There's a lot of really cute milestones during this time, which can also go hand in hand with a sleep regression. So they are starting to crawl or pull themselves up to standing, walk, maybe babble a little bit. And when their brain's in overdrive like that, they can have hard time settling themselves. So you might be doing an earlier bedtime because they can get very overstimulated, and that applies to the 0 to 6 months as well. When they're having a leap or a milestone, their brain's working so quickly that they might get really tired and need to go to sleep a little earlier. During this time, you can really have a great reliable schedule. Naps will be very consistent during this time. They're able to stay awake longer, probably between 2.5 to 4 hours by the time they're a year old. And they'll be dropping down naps too. So by the time they're 12 months, they're down to their 2 naps a day. How we handle sleep issues during this time period is different than when they're 0 to 6 months, because separation anxiety starts to develop during this time as well. And sometimes seeing their parents can end up upsetting them even more. And so whereas you might have been able to go in with your 4-month-old and rub the bridge of their nose or put a hand on their chest and shush them, that might end up upsetting a baby at this age even more. So a little less interference and letting them, again, going through the checklist, letting them figure it out and see if they're able to settle themselves will help resolve the sleep issue a lot sooner. Then the kind of 12 month and up category, even though that can extend to a very large period of time, the difference is that at this age, things are more behavioral and less developmental. So if there's sleep issues at this time, it's really more about breaking the bad habits. And so that can end up being more protesting from your child, but the flip side of that is that they can learn very quickly. And so if you're able to be firm but loving and extremely consistent, then you're able to resolve the sleep issues. So if they're fighting bedtime or fighting a nap or waking in the night, really keeping it from becoming a game or anything exciting to them, what you want to do is just resettle them with as little fanfare as possible so that they aren't feeling like they're getting rewarded for this bad behavior. They will transition to 1 nap after 12 months. I think it should be closer to 15 to 18 months, and we'll get into that a little more later. So really at this age, it's the loving but firm boundaries and just knowing that habits can be hard to break, but they can be broken quickly as long as you have a good game plan. And we have a great toddler specialist too, Megan, who is wonderful with the toddlers. And so then common topics. So I saw a few questions about naps, and we certainly get lots of calls about naps. Nap training is hard. It takes time, and it's not something that it usually takes about a week or so, at least, to resolve it. You won't start to see consistent naps from your baby until 6 months. The morning nap will be probably the one that's a little more consistent first. Afternoon naps are always just a little harder. Their sleep pressure is lighter. There's more distractions in the day. But I would encourage anybody with a toddler to stay with the nap. You really don't want to be dropping a nap until they're at least 3 years old. And so when any baby or toddler is going through a nap transition, there's going to be some signs. They're going to be fighting the nap. They're going to have a hard time going to bed at night, or they're just going to outright refuse to take a nap. And you're also going to notice that they're able to stay awake for longer periods of time. You're going to want to see that behavior for at least a week before you start to make a transition. And so you will adjust their schedule and making sure that they're not getting overtired during that time. For older toddlers, it's time to drop the nap if it's stealing from nighttime sleep. So if they're not going to bed till 9:30 at night, or they're waking up super early, then it's probably time to drop the nap. Usually we like to keep it until they're at least 3. My middle child napped until he was 4.5. He just really needed that sleep. So it can vary from child to child, but even if you have a baby that doesn't need, or toddler that doesn't need a ton of sleep, I would really encourage you to try to keep the nap until they're at least 3. You can trim it down. You can make it so that it's only an hour, and then you're waking them up and having it end by 3 p.m. so that they are ready to go to sleep at night. And again, it takes time. So being very consistent and somewhat rigid for 10 days will really set the foundation to see the change and give you some flexibility down the road. And then the next question was early wakings or night wakings. So we consider a full night of sleep 10 hours. If they're waking before that, then you would want to consider that a night waking or an early waking. Because the lightest period of sleep is from 4 to 7 a.m., it's very common to have an early waking or an early riser. So going back to the foundations and making sure that the sleep environment is super dark, having the sound machine up loud. A lot of times there'll be a heater that kicks on in the morning or something, and that can be the reason that it wakes a kid up. So just being aware of the environment and making sure that it's really conducive to sleep can help if you have an early riser. If your baby's waking in the night at the same time every night, that's probably out of habit and not so much hunger. So we would want to really try everything we could to soothe a baby and without offering food if they're able to be skipping feedings at night. And so you'd want to check with your pediatrician and make sure that they don't need those feedings. And then whatever you can do to push it back. So if they've been regularly having a feed at 12:30 at night, then if they are waking up every night at 12:30, you'd want to try to soothe them, for at least 15 minutes, really make them work before you did eventually give them that feed if they still needed it. And then every few nights, just try to make that longer and longer stretch so that eventually you're getting to the morning. Night wakings for older children. So if they are waking, from a nightmare or whatever it may be, sometimes changing up their bedtime and moving it earlier in the day, or earlier in the night, can help. Or, if they're having a hard time falling asleep or they're waking up because they're anxious about something. My oldest often has a hard time settling, or his thoughts will start racing when he's going to sleep at night, or he'll wake in the night from that. And so just helping to set the expectations for them, I think, can be really helpful. We'll lay with him and sort of talk him through, you need to commit to staying in your bed, to letting yourself settle, letting your body slow down, let your thoughts slow down, and seeing, if that can kind of help them. He has a clock next to his bed, and we make sure that he does not get up before 30 minutes so that he's really given himself a chance to rest. And then if he needs to come back into our room to talk to us, we do. And just trying to make it as unexciting as possible if you need to go in there and get them settled again. And that goes for any toddler that's able to get out of their own bed, just getting them back in and just really consistently putting them back in their room. Toddler clocks are fantastic if you have an early waker. You can introduce those between 12 and 18 months, and then by 18 months, they're really starting to understand it. The hatch is great because you can set it from your phone so that if they're waking up super early and they're not going to stay in their bed and wait for an hour for that hatch, you can move the time up, or if they're still asleep, you can move it later. That said, my older kids use the OK to Wake, and those work great for them. And just when you're first introducing a toddler clock, you want to make it the biggest deal in the world to them, and having them feel really special if they make it. So making them a special breakfast, or working towards a goal if they're able to stay in their bed until the green light every morning. And they will they'll get the hang of it. And the more you praise them and the more you make it a big deal, they will really get involved and get on board. But and then the other one is fighting bedtime. So if your child's under 12 or 18 months and they're fighting bedtime, it's more developmental and they might be overtired, and you would want to just go back and look at their daytime schedule and seeing, if maybe they didn't get enough daytime sleep, and so bedtime should have been earlier that day. If they're 18 months, it's more of a behavioral thing. So if for the child that's under 18 months, if they've historically been a good sleeper, they're probably just going through a transition. And so you just, again, maybe move bedtime up and work on not developing bad habits if you're addressing fighting a bedtime. So don't start nursing them to sleep again or rocking them to sleep again, but just building in the time to your bedtime routine to know if there's going to be resistance so that you can have that time so that they're not getting overtired. So moving it up even that much earlier until they're able to get themselves back down. For a toddler, if they're fighting bedtime, this is where it's about setting firm boundaries in a loving way. So if they're asking for water or another story or extra snuggles, you can do a few different things. You can set a timer. So, okay, sure, honey, I'll stay in bed with you for this long. And on your phone, you're using the timer app and just letting them see, when the timer's up, this is when mommy's going to leave. And then just leaving and closing the door and keeping it as drama free as possible for a child this age, but just being super, super consistent and firm with them. So if they're immediately following you out of the room, turn around, walk them back in, put them in the bed. And just don't stress, don't interact with them very much, just get them back in the bed and keep doing it. And it might take a while, but they will start to get the picture. You can make a bedtime chart. These are great to help involve your child and have them feel like they're making controlled choices. So, how many stories do you want to read? 2 or 1? Do you want these jammies or these jammies? And involving them in the sleep process can help them feel like it's something that they want to be doing themselves. There's a little game you can play for older children who are in a bed and not in a crib, that called the kissing game, where you tuck them in and tell them if they are a good boy or girl and stay in their bed for the next few minutes, you'll come back and reward them with a kiss, and making it and doing that, and then slowly increasing the interval every few nights to see if they're able to stay in their bed, and then eventually they will be drifting off on their own. And so that was kind of it for the sleep topics and questions. If you guys ever have any more questions, please reach out to Christine. She can connect us. We at Sleep Shop offer unlimited support for our families that we work with. So if you ever have any sleep issues and want to reach out, we have a whole team that would love to help. We have night nurses, we have a toddler specialist, and then we have the sleep consultants like myself, and all sorts of packages of different lengths of time depending on your child, and we can help recommend that and see what's going on and get a good customized sleep plan for your family, and then coach you and support you through it. So if you ever have a sleep issue, please let us know, because we would love to help. It's been so wonderful to be able to share with you today, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Thank you.